The grand ballroom was alive with music and laughter as Emily swirled a glass of champagne in her hand. The soft glow of chandeliers bathed the room in a golden light, reflecting off her stunning red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Her smile was dazzling, drawing the attention of many, including her colleague Andrew. "Emily, you look absolutely breathtaking tonight," Andrew said, his eyes lingering on her. "Thank you, Andrew," Emily replied, her voice playful. "You don't look too bad yourself." Andrew was charming, confident, and everything Emily felt was missing from her marriage. Blake, her husband, stood across the room watching. His eyes followed Emily's every move, his heart heavy with suspicion and hurt. He had noticed the subtle changes in her behavior the late nights, the secret of phone calls, the growing distance between them. Blake took a sip of his drink, his gaze never leaving Emily. He saw her laughing at something Andrew said, her hand lightly touching Andrew's arm. The sight made his stomach churn. He had confronted Emily about her behavior before, but she had always brushed it off, insisting that he was being paranoid. As the night went on, Emily's flirtation with Andrew became more brazen. She leaned in closer to him, whispered in his ear, and laughed loudly at his jokes. Blake's grip tightened around his glass as he watched. "Do you want to dance?" Andrew asked, his voice low and smooth. "I'd love to," Emily replied, her eyes sparkling. They moved to the dance floor, and Blake's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't take it anymore. He needed to confront her, to put an end to this humiliation. He walked over to the dance floor, his face a mask of calm determination. "May I cut in?" Blake asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Emily glanced at him dismissively. "Oh, Blake, can't you see I'm busy?" Blake ignored her words, turning to Andrew. "I think it's time you found someone else to dance with." Andrew raised his hands and mocked surrender. "No problem, man. I'll leave you to it." As Andrew walked away, Blake turned back to Emily. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Emily laughed, a harsh, worthless sound. "Relax, Blake. It's just a dance." "It's not just a dance," Blake said, his voice low and controlled. "You've been flirting with him all night." Emily rolled her eyes. "You're being ridiculous." Blake's jaw clenched. "Am I? You think I haven't noticed the late nights? The secret of phone calls? You think I'm blind?" Emily sighed, her patience wearing thin. "Blake, I'm not your property. I don't need you watching my every move. If you don't find out, no harm done." Blake stared at her, his heart breaking. "So that's it? You think you can do whatever you want as long as I don't find out?" Emily shrugged. "I'm just having fun, Blake. Don't make it into something it's not." Blake took a step back, his face a mask of pain and anger. "If that's how you feel, then maybe we need to reevaluate our marriage." Emily looked away, her expression unreadable. "Maybe we do." Blake turned and walked away, his mind racing with plans. He couldn't let this go on any longer. He needed to take control to protect himself from the pain she was causing. As he made his way through the crowd, he heard Emily's laughter echoing behind him, a cruel reminder of the betrayal that had shattered his world. Blake found a quiet corner and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. Taking a deep breath, he dialed the number and waited. "Hello?" a voice answered. "Hey, it's Blake," he said, his voice steady. "I need your help." The night continued, and Emily felt a sense of triumph. She had pushed Blake away, asserting her independence and satisfying her need for excitement. She returned to Andrew, who was waiting with a drink in hand. "Everything okay?" Andrew asked, a hint of concern in his voice. "Everything's fine," Emily replied, her smile back in place. Blake just needed a reality check. Andrew nodded, handing her the drink. "Well, I'm glad you're back. I've been waiting for you." Emily took a sip of the champagne, feeling a rush of exhilaration. She leaned in closer to Andrew, their conversation becoming more intimate as the night went on. Meanwhile, Blake was in a quiet room discussing his plans with a friend he could trust. "Are you sure about this, Blake?" his friend asked, his voice filled with concern. "I have to do something," Blake replied, his voice resolute. "I can't let her keep humiliating me like this." His friend nodded, understanding the pain in Blake's eyes. "All right, what do you need me to do?" Blake outlined his plan, each step carefully thought out. He would gather evidence, document everything, and confront Emily with the undeniable truth. He knew it would be difficult, but he couldn't see any other way. The gala began to wind down, and Emily felt a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. She had enjoyed her time with Andrew, relishing the attention and the thrill of something new. But as she returned home with Blake, a nagging feeling of guilt began to creep in. Blake drove in silence, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. Emily glanced at him, sensing the tension. "Blake, are you really that upset?" she asked, her voice softer now. Blake didn't respond immediately. He took a deep breath, trying to keep his emotions in check. "Emily, we need to talk, but not tonight." Emily nodded, feeling a pang of unease. "All right. We'll talk tomorrow." That night, as Emily slept, Blake stayed awake, his mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and plans for the future. He knew that tomorrow would bring difficult conversations and hard decisions, but he was ready. He had to be. The gala had been a turning point, a moment of clarity for Blake. He could no longer ignore the signs, the late nights, the flirtations. Emily's words had cut deep, but they had also given him the resolve he needed. Tomorrow he would confront her with the truth, and their lives would change forever. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow into the bedroom where Emily woke with a pounding headache. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, she lay still, trying to piece together the events of the previous night. The memories came rushing back like a torrential flood. She reached out instinctively, expecting to find Blake beside her, but his side of the bed was cold and empty, confused. Emily sat up, rubbing her temples to ease the headache. She stumbled into the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face, in an attempt to clear her mind. As she looked around the bedroom, her eyes fell on a suitcase placed neatly on the floor. Her heart skipped a beat as she approached it cautiously. There, on the bed beside the suitcase, lay a note written in Blake's unmistakable handwriting. "Emily, you have until midnight to leave town." "Blake!" The words hit Emily like a physical blow. Panic surged through her veins as she read them again, trying to comprehend their meaning. What had happened last night? What had she done to deserve this ultimatum? She rushed out of the bedroom, her bare feet padding softly on the carpeted floor. The living room was quiet, save for the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. Her eyes scanned the room frantically, searching for any sign of Blake, but he was nowhere to be found. Instead, Emily's gaze fell upon Andrew, her colleague from the gala, lying unconscious on the couch. A half-empty bottle of Blake's finest whiskey stood on the coffee table beside him, its contents a testament to the night's events. "Andrew!" Emily cried out, shaking him gently. "Wake up!" Andrew groaned and stirred, his eyes fluttering open slowly. He blinked, trying to orient himself in the unfamiliar surroundings. "Emily, where am I?" Emily's voice trembled with urgency. "Andrew, what happened last night? Do you remember anything?" Andrew rubbed his temples, wincing as he sat up. I remember the gala, and then I think I drank too much. How did I get here?" Emily's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of memory. "Blake, he must have brought you here." Andrew looked around, confusion etched on his face. "Where is Blake? Is he okay?" "I don't know," Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's gone, and he left this note for me." Andrew frowned, his expression clouded with concern. "What does it say?" Emily handed him the note, her hands trembling. Andrew read it silently, his brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. "Midnight, leave town. What does he mean by this?" "I don't know," Emily repeated, her voice thick with panic. "I thought everything was fine. I didn't think he'd react like this." Andrew sighed, placing the note back on the bed. "Emily, maybe you should call him. Talk to him. Figure this out." Emily nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. She reached for her phone on the coffee table, but her heart sank when she saw the screen was dark. "My phone. It's dead. Here, let me help," Andrew offered, handing her a charger from the nearby drawer. Emily plugged in her phone, anxiously watching as the screen lit up with a faint glow. She dialed Blake's number, holding her breath as the phone rang. But there was no answer. Just the sound of the ringing echoing in her ears, unanswered questions hanging in the air. "He's not picking up," Emily said, her voice trembling. "What do I do now?" Andrew hesitated, unsure of what to say. Maybe you should leave town, just for a while. Give him some space to cool off." Emily shook her head adamantly. "No, I can't just leave, not like this. I need to talk to him to explain Andrew's side. running a hand through his tousled hair. "Emily, I don't think he wants to talk right now. He's hurt, and he's angry. Maybe it's best if you give him some time." Emily's eyes filled with tears, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "I can't lose him, Andrew. I love him." Andrew's expression softened with sympathy. He reached out and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I know you do, Emily, but you have to give him space to process everything. Rushing in might make things worse." Emily nodded slowly, feeling defeated and lost. "What have I done, Andrew? How did it come to this?" Andrew squeezed her shoulder gently. "I wish I had the answers, Emily, but right now you need to take care of yourself, figure out what you want and how you're going to fix this." Emily wiped away her tears, her resolve hardening. "You're right. I have to talk to him to make him understand." Andrew nodded, offering a small smile of encouragement. "I'll stay here with you if you need me. Whatever you decide to do?" Emily nodded gratefully, feeling a flicker of hope amidst the turmoil. She knew she had to face Blake to confront the consequences of her actions. Whether he would forgive her or not, she had to try. With a deep breath, Emily picked up her phone again and dialed Blake's number once more, praying this time he would answer. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly as Emily paced back and forth in the empty living room. Hours had passed and she found Blake's ultimatum, and with each passing minute, her anxiety deepened. The message on her phone from an unknown number stared back at her, a stark reminder of the gravity of her situation. "Leave by midnight where the consequences will be worse. I have everything documented. Blake." Tears streamed down Emily's face as she read the message again. She collapsed onto the couch, overwhelmed by the weight of her decisions and the pain of losing Blake. How had it come to this? She had never imagined their marriage could unravel so swiftly, so completely. A soft groan interrupted her thoughts, and Emily looked up to see Andrew stirring on the couch. He rubbed his eyes and sat up slowly, blinking in confusion as he tried to piece together the events of the night before. "Emily!" Andrew's voice was hoarse with sleep. "What's going on? Why am I here?" Emily swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "Blake, he found out about us. He's kicked me out, Andrew." Andrew's eyes widened and shocked. "Kicked you out? But why? I thought everything was fine between you two." Emily shook her head, her hands trembling in her lap. "It's not fine, Andrew. He saw us at the gala and he couldn't take it anymore. He left me this note telling me to leave town by midnight." Andrew ran a hand through his hair, his expression filled with concern. "Midnight? That's barely a few hours away. What are you going to do?" Emily wiped away her tears, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. "I don't know, Andrew. I have nowhere to go, no one to turn to. I'm alone." Andrew reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone, Emily. I'm here for you. We'll figure this out together." Emily nodded weakly, grateful for Andrew's support amidst the chaos. "Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation hanging heavy in the air. Emily knew she had to make a decision soon. She couldn't stay here, not with Blake's threat looming over her. "I have to leave," Emily said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have to find somewhere safe to go." Andrew nodded, his expression serious. "Do you have everything you need? Money, clothes?" Emily shook her head. I packed a few things, but it's not much. I don't have much money either. We'll figure it out." Andrew assured her, his voice steady. "Let's start by finding you a place to stay tonight. Somewhere safe where Blake won't find you." Emily nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. "Okay, thank you, Andrew. I don't know what I would do without you." Andrew offered a reassuring smile. "You don't have to figure it out alone, Emily. I'm here." They spent the next hour making arrangements. Andrew helped Emily find a small hotel nearby where she could stay temporarily. He offered to cover the cost, insisting that she needed a safe place to gather her thoughts and make a plan. As they gathered her few belongings and headed towards the door, Emily paused, her gaze lingering on the empty house she once called home. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized the enormity of what had happened. "I'll come back for the rest of my things later," Emily said quietly, her voice breaking. Andrew squeezed her hand gently. "Take your time, Emily. We'll take it one step at a time." They left the house together, Andrew driving Emily to the hotel in silence. The streets passed by in a blur, Emily lost in her thoughts. She felt a mix of emotions, grief for the life she had lost, fear for an uncertain future, and guilt for the pain she had caused Blake. When they arrived at the hotel, Andrew helped Emily check in and settle into her room. She thanked him again, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Andrew. For everything." Andrew smiled warmly. "You're welcome, Emily. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll start figuring out what comes next." Emily nodded, closing the door behind him as he left. Alone in the small hotel room, she collapsed onto the bed, her emotions overwhelming her. She buried her face in her hands, the weight of her decisions crushing her spirit. As Emily lay there, the reality of her homelessness sank in. She had lost everything: her marriage, her home, her sense of security. Now she faced a future filled with uncertainty and regret, but amidst the darkness, a small flicker of determination burned within her. She couldn't change the past, but she could shape her future. She had to find a way to make amends, to rebuild her life from the ashes of her mistakes. With a deep breath, Emily wiped away her tears and sat up. She took out her phone and began to make a list of things she needed to do, people she could reach out to and plans she could make. She didn't know where this journey would lead, but one thing was certain: she couldn't give up. Not now, not ever. Months passed since Emily left, and Blake had focused all his energy on rebuilding his life. The divorce was finalized swiftly, and though the legal process was a blur of paperwork and meetings, Blake felt a strange sense of relief once it was over. He had made his decision, and now he could move forward. He threw himself into his work with renewed vigor, pouring long hours into his career. It was a distraction, a way to keep his mind occupied and avoid dwelling on the past. His colleagues noticed the change in him: more focused, more driven than ever before. Outside of work, Blake sought solace in his hobbies. He spent weekends hiking in the mountains, finding peace in the quiet solitude of nature. He rediscovered his love for photography, capturing breathtaking landscapes that mirrored the newfound clarity in his own life. But amidst the busyness of work and hobbies, there was a void, a lingering ache in his heart that refused to fade. Blake missed the companionship, the warmth of a loving partner by his side. He missed having someone to share his thoughts, his dreams, his life. One evening, at the insistence of a close friend, Blake reluctantly signed up for a dating site. He browsed through profiles with a mix of hesitation and curiosity, unsure of what he was looking for, but willing to explore the possibility of new beginnings. That's when he stumbled upon Sarah's profile, a radiant smile, eyes full of kindness that seemed to reach through the screen and touch his soul. Intrigued, Blake sent her a message, not expecting much but hoping for a chance to connect with someone who could understand his journey. To his surprise, Sarah responded almost immediately. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, as if they had known each other for years instead of mere minutes. They discovered shared interests, similar values, and a deep appreciation for life's simple joys. They agreed to meet for coffee, a casual outing that turned into hours of laughter and conversation. Blake found himself drawn to Sarah's warmth, her genuine nature, and the way she made him feel at ease. It was a stark contrast to the tension and uncertainty that had plagued his marriage to Emily. As weeks turned into months, Blake and Sarah's relationship blossomed. They explored new restaurants, took weekend trips to nearby towns, and shared quiet moments under the stars. Blake was cautious at first, afraid to let himself hope for a future filled with happiness after the pain of his past. But Sarah was patient and understanding, giving him the space he needed to heal while gently reminding him of the joy that life could offer. She listened to his stories, comforted him during moments of doubt, and stood by his side as he navigated the complexities of moving on. One sunny afternoon, while walking hand in hand through a vibrant city park, Blake realized he had found something he had thought lost: forever peace. He looked at Sarah, her laughter echoing through the air, and knew in his heart that she was the one he wanted to build a future with. They talked about their dreams of traveling the world, of starting a family, of creating a home filled with love and laughter. Sarah's eyes sparkled with excitement, mirroring the hope and joy that Blake felt swelling within him. Months turned into years, and Blake proposed to Sarah on a serene beach at sunset, a moment of perfect clarity and overwhelming love. She said yes without hesitation, her eyes shimmering with tears of happiness as they embraced, knowing that their journey together was just beginning. They married surrounded by friends and family in a ceremony filled with laughter, tears, and promises of forever. Blake stood at the altar, gazing into Sarah's eyes, feeling a sense of completeness he had never known before. They built a life together, a home filled with love, laughter, and the bitter pattern of tiny feet. Sarah gave birth to their first child, a son with Blake's eyes and Sarah's smile. They welcomed 2 more children, a daughter with a passion for art, and a second son with a knack for making everyone laugh. Blake found joy in fatherhood, in watching his children grow and thrive, and being present for every milestone and every bedtime story. Sarah brought light and warmth into their home, her love grounding him during moments of doubt and uncertainty. Years passed, and Blake's life transformed in ways he had never imagined possible. He found peace and happiness, a sense of belonging that filled the void left by Emily's departure. He had learned to forgive not just Emily, but himself for the mistakes of the past. One sunny afternoon, while on a family trip to a bustling city, Blake spotted a familiar figure sitting alone on a park bench, a woman with disheveled hair, wearing clothes worn and weathered by time. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized Emily, the woman who had once been his wife. Sarah noticed the change in Blake's demeanor and followed his gaze to the woman on the bench. She squeezed his hand gently, sensing the mix of emotions swirling within him. Blake. Sarah's voice was soft, filled with concern. Blake took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving Emily's figure in the distance. Memories flooded his mind, the pain, the betrayal, the journey that had led him to this moment of peace and contentment. He turned to Sarah, his eyes reflecting a lifetime of gratitude and love. "I have everything I need right here," he said quietly, his voice steady with conviction. Sarah smiled, understanding shining in her eyes as she nodded in silent agreement. Together they continued walking, their children laughing and playing ahead of them, a testament to the new beginnings they had forged together. And as they walked away, Blake cast one last glance over his shoulder at Emily, a woman he had loved and lost, whose presence had once filled his days with turmoil and heartache. But now, as he embraced Sarah and their children, Blake knew that he had found his way back to happiness, a happiness that was built on forgiveness, love, and the promise of a future filled with endless possibilities. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the bustling city streets as Blake and his family drove through unfamiliar neighborhoods. They were on a road trip, exploring new places and creating cherished memories together. In the back seat, their children giggled and chatted excitedly, their voices filling the car with joy and innocence. As they approached a busy intersection, Blake's attention was drawn to a figure sitting on the Kerbal woman with disheveled hair and worn clothes, her face weathered by years of hardship. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized her. It was Emily. His Emily, the woman who had once been his wife. She looked up briefly, her eyes meeting Blake's for a fleeting moment before dropping away, as if unable to bear the weight of his gaze. Her expression was one of resignation, her shoulders slumped with defeat. Blake's wife, Sarah, noticed his sudden change in demeanor and followed his gaze to the woman on the curb. Concern furrowed her brow as she asked softly, "Do you know her?" Blake hesitated, the memories of their tumultuous past flooding his mind, the betrayal, the pain, the anguish of losing the woman he had loved. He took a deep breath, steadying himself before answering in a quiet voice. "Yes, I did once." Sarah placed a comforting hand on his arm, her touch grounding him in the present. "What happened?" she asked gently, sensing the weight of the unspoken history between them. Blake glanced at his children in the rearview mirror, their laughter ringing through the car. He thought of the life they had built together, the love, the laughter, the moments that had healed his wounded heart. "It's a long story. I told you little, remember?" Blake began slowly, his voice tinged with sadness and regret. "Emily and I, we were married once, but things didn't work out." Sarah nodded understandingly, her gaze softening with compassion. She knew that Blake carried scars from his past, wounds that had shaped the man he had become. "Did you know she was?" Sarah's voice trailed off, unable to find the right words. Blake shook his head, his eyes never leaving Emily's figure on the curb. "No, I had no idea." Silence settled between them as they watched Emily from a distance, each lost in their own thoughts. The light turned green, and Blake reluctantly pulled away from the intersection, leaving Emily behind in the rearview mirror. They continued their journey through the city, but Emily's presence lingered in Blake's mind. He found himself reflecting on their tumultuous past, the arguments, the broken promises, the shattered dreams. He had loved Emily once, with a passion that had consumed him. But in the end, their love had crumbled under the weight of betrayal and heartache. As the day faded into dusk and the city lights flickered to life, Blake's thoughts turned to the life he had now Sarah by his side, their children laughing in the back seat. They stopped at a quaint diner for dinner, the atmosphere warm and inviting. Over burgers and fries, Sarah gently broached the subject that weighed heavily on both their minds. "Are you okay, Blake?" she asked softly, her concern palpable. Blake sighed, stirring his coffee absently. I didn't expect to see her like that. It's been years since." Sarah reached across the table, squeezing his hand reassuringly. "It's okay to feel unsettled, Blake. Seeing someone from your past, especially under those circumstances, I know." Blake murmured, his gaze distant. "I thought I had moved on, that I had made peace with everything. But seeing her like that, it brought back memories, feelings I thought I had buried." Sarah nodded, her expression sympathetic. "You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what." Blake managed a faint smile, grateful for Sarah's unwavering support. "Thank you, Sarah, for understanding." They finished their meal in companionable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the city buzzed with life, the night sky a tapestry of twinkling stars. As they drove back to their hotel, Blake stole glances at the sleeping children in the back seat. Their innocence, a stark contrast to the complexities of adult life. He thought of Emily again, wondering what had led her down the path she now walked. But amidst the questions and uncertainties, one thing remained clear: his heart belonged to Sarah and their children. They were his present, his future, the light that had guided him through the darkness of his past. And as they settled into their hotel room for the night, Blake held Sarah close, finding solace in her warmth and the promise of tomorrow. They fell asleep, intertwined, their breathing synchronized in the quiet rhythm of love and forgiveness. Outside, the city slept peacefully, unaware of the reunion that had stirred emotions and memories long buried. For Blake, it was a reminder of how far he had come, of the second chances and new beginnings that had shaped his journey. And as the night deepened into dawn, he closed his eyes, embracing the peace that Sarah had brought into his life, a peace that he had once thought impossible to find. The light turned green, casting a verdant glow over the intersection as Blake drove away, leaving Emily behind on the curb. His heart weighed heavy with a mix of emotions: pity for Emily's plight, relief that he had moved on, and above all, a profound sense of closure. He knew in that moment that he had made the right choice for his future and for his family. Blake squeezed Sarah's hand gently, grateful for her unwavering presence beside him. Her touch grounded him, reminding him of the strength and stability he had found in their relationship. Glancing in the rearview mirror at their children in the back seat, he felt a surge of love and protectiveness. "There is sleep," Sarah murmured, her voice soft with tenderness. "Yeah," Blake replied, his voice tinged with relief. Thankfully, they didn't notice. Sarah nodded, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. "It's probably for the best. They don't need to know about Emily." Blake swallowed hard, his throat tight with unspoken emotions. No, they don't. Silence settled between them, the hum of the engine filling the car as they continued their journey through the unfamiliar streets. Blake found himself reflecting on the chance encounter with Emily, the unexpected twist that had stirred memories and emotions long buried. "I didn't expect to see her like that," Blake admitted quietly, breaking the silence. "I thought I had moved on." But Sarah turned to him, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's okay to feel shaken, Blake, seeing someone from your past, especially under those circumstances." "Yeah?" Blake murmured, his mind still reeling from the encounter. It just brought back memories I thought I had put to rest. Sarah reached out, her fingers brushing against Blake's cheek in a gesture of comfort. You've come a long way, Blake. We both have. Blake nodded, grateful for Sarah's reassuring presence. I know, and I'm thankful for everything we have. They drove in silence for a while longer, the city lights casting a warm glow over the nighttime streets. Blake found himself replaying moments from his past with Emily, their early days filled with hope and promise, the gradual unraveling of their marriage and the painful realization of her betrayal. I loved her once. Blake began softly, his voice barely above a whisper. With everything I had, Sarah listened quietly, her heart aching for the pain he had endured. I know, she replied gently, but sometimes love isn't enough. Blake nodded, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. Yeah, sometimes it's not. They arrived at their hotel, the familiar sight offering a sense of comfort amidst the emotional turmoil. Blake parked the car and turned off the engine, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. I think seeing Emily today, it made me realize how far I've come, Blake admitted, his voice tinged with relief. Sarah reached over, her hand finding his once more. You've grown stronger, Blake, and you've built a beautiful life for us. Blake smiled faintly, his heart swelling with gratitude for Sarah's unwavering support. I have, haven't I? They stepped out of the car and walked hand in hand to their hotel room. Inside, the air was quiet and still, offering a sanctuary from the outside world. Blake closed the door behind them, exhaling slowly as he leaned against it. Sarah wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. You're okay? Blake, she whispered, her voice's soothing balm to his soul. We're okay. Blake nodded, his arms encircling her in a tight embrace. Yeah, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. We're okay. They stood together in the silence, finding solace in each other's presence. The weight of the past seemed lighter now, overshadowed by the love and understanding they shared. As they settled into bed that night, Blake held Sarah close, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over him. He knew that Emily's unexpected appearance had stirred memories and emotions, but it had also reaffirmed the choices he had made, the path he had taken to find healing and happiness. Outside, the city slept peacefully, unaware of the quiet resolution that had unfolded in the lives of Blake and Sarah. For them, the encounter with Emily had brought closure, a closing chapter in a story of love, loss, and ultimately resilience. And as Blake closed his eyes, he felt a sense of gratitude for the life they had built together, a life filled with love, laughter, and the promise of tomorrow.